On this episode, we tell stories and discuss the issue of crime and safety in Bangkok.
So if you've heard that Bangkok is safe, or if you've been a victim of crime in Bangkok, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father before me, but all the manuals were in Thai, so I'm learning really slowly.
Yeah, it takes time, man.
Yeah, keep at it.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract more than 22 years ago. Fell in love with that sweet, cool blast of air conditioning after being in Bangkok's sweltering, oppressive heat, so I never left.
It's so good. You know, the first time I ever experienced air conditioning was in Thailand, when I came to Thailand. We don't have it in Canada.
Oh, really? Is that true? It's so cold. You just don't have air conditioning at all?
Well, the summers are warm, but they're just, I mean, I'm sure there are houses that have it, but I never lived in one. I remember my first car that I got, it was an old 1976 Ford Maverick. And someone asked me like, oh yeah, does it have air conditioning? And I said, yeah. Thinking that, yeah, when you're driving, you just open the vent and the air blows
when you
on
roll
you.
When you roll the windows down. When you roll the windows down, which has air conditioning.
I was serious. To me, that was aircon. I didn't really get it, but
that's hilarious.
It is nice to have.
No, the reason I thought of this is that I would just in these last few days, those last couple of weeks, I should say, where it's been so damn hot, where when I've been just walking around. And you just can't believe how hot it is. And then you go into a restaurant and the door closes behind you, and it feels so good. Oh. Like when that wave of cool air hits you. It's all about contrast, man.
I love being on the BTS when it stops and then it starts to go, and you've got that that wave of cool air that like physics pushes down through the train. Oh, I love it.
For sure. Bangkok, they say, is a city of contrasts, and I think the sweltering heat and the chilly aircon is a good example.
No doubt.
All right, we want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about an update to Greg's sad story of his bike being stolen, a bit of rumination on the issue of local Thai marijuana versus illegally imported weed from overseas, which is causing a bit of a fuss, and more thoughts on the upcoming election, which, as you hear this, will have already happened.
Fingers crossed.
That's right. To learn how to become a patron, click the support button at the top of our website.
Right. And as always, if you have a comment, a show idea, or just want to say hi, head to BangkokPodcast.com and click the little microphone button at the bottom right to leave us a voicemail that we'll play on the show. All right, so in this episode, we turn lemons into lemonade and take inspiration from a low-down, dirty crime that was perpetrated on me recently. Now, of course, we just talked about it real quick, but I am talking about my bike being stolen, which happened a few weeks ago. We'll go into a bit more detail on that in a minute. But while that's pretty small potatoes in the big scheme of things, it's still the biggest bit of crime that has been perpetrated against me in Thailand, which got us thinking about the other times we've been had. So Ed and I decided to dig into our Bangkok nostalgia to think of a few times that we've been the victims, or nearly victims, of a crime to see if it uncovers any hidden trauma that we may have, and maybe serve as a warning to our listeners that while Bangkok is undoubtedly a safe city overall, as we've said on the podcast a million times, that doesn't mean it is without its risks. So Ed, what do you think about this story? Do you think it's controversial? Do you think we got to be careful what we say, or do you think how do you think people react?
No. I think every city in the world has crime. Bangkok has crime.
Sure.
Thailand has crime, but I think the flavor, the recipe of crime here is certainly different than I would encounter in a big city in the States. You and I have addressed it kind of haphazardly before. We've mentioned a lot that in terms of violent crime, you and I have mentioned many times we feel much safer here than we probably would be in a big city in the West. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a lot of nonviolent crime. I mean, I want to be clear. Obviously, there is still violent crime in Thailand. Most people have heard about the horrible murders on the so-called murder island of Koh Tao. So foreigners are the victims of violent crimes in Thailand for sure. But I think on a frequency basis, on a percentage basis, not as much as you like. I think roaming the streets of London at 3 a.m. is probably more dangerous than roaming the streets of Bangkok. Actually, we're probably roaming the streets of almost any city outside of Japan. Okay, I can roam the streets of Tokyo. I'll do that late at night.
Right. In Japan, you get home from roaming late at night and people have put stuff in your pockets.
That's right. That's roughly correct. That's roughly correct. No. It's but this is what we want to make clear is that Greg and I have been in Thailand for a long time, and both of us have been personally the victims of crime, and we also are very close to people who have been victims of crime. So we're going to tell some stories that relate to us, or people, our direct friends or family members. So we're not going to discuss anecdotes, stories we read online, or news stories.
Right.
We're just going to talk about our own experiences or people very close to us.
Yeah. So let me start off real quick with a story about my bike. And we discussed this in detail in the bonus show, which you can listen to if you can become a patron. But very, very quickly, I was an idiot and I did not lock my bike the last time I rode it. And I was just downstairs in my parking garage and some guy came in and a few weeks ago, late at night, early in the morning. And he just sort of picked it up and walked out the front gate with it. And it's gone to the four winds. So that's a bit of a bummer. It was a nice bike. It was an expensive bike, and I used it a lot, or as much as I could.
Well, I just want to throw this out there since I'm familiar with the story. I mean, technically, where you kept your bike, you could access from the public, but it's not. This is a private garage, like that's part of your condo. Mm-hmm. It's not a place that someone should be able to easily walk in and out. So in this case, somebody screwed up.
Yeah.
But probably you should have had it locked, but bike thieves are pretty good at getting through locks, at least in the States. I don't know how things are in Thailand, but there's no bike lock that is safe in the U.S. anyway. But but it shows you. The lesson from this is it shows you that even if we're relatively safe from violent crime, theft is just very common in general in Thailand.
Yeah,
because obviously this guy who took the bike, he didn't know he was taking it from a foreigner. He just saw a nice bike and just snatched it, right?
Yeah, he thought it was taken from a particularly giant-bodied Thai person. Because I saw pictures.
I guess you're right. I guess you're right. I guess it's such a big bike. Maybe he was like, wow, I guess this is a Farong's bike.
Because I did meet with the police and they showed me screen caps of the video, the CCTV, and it looked like he was really struggling to get his feet down to the bottom of the pedals when he rode a race. So,
that is so funny. Yeah. Wow, that shows actually like high motivation on his part.
I guess
he took this bike that was like twice the size that it should have been.
But it did remind me that it was my fault that it wasn't locked up. That was a stupid thing to do. It was there's issues with security who probably shouldn't have let some random dude walk out with a bike at 3 a.m. But it goes to show that like crime, like we said, it's everywhere. It's in Thailand. It's in Bangkok. People are always looking for stuff that's easy to take. Whether it's jewelry or something laying on the street or an unlocked car or something like that. So unfortunately, I think we just live in a world where we have to understand that people are always looking for stuff to take that if it's out.
Now, I pride myself on being a data guy, but crime statistics are like just inherently unreliable because a lot of people don't report crime. It's hard to compare data from country to country. So this is more just my speculation. But I'm going to speculate that the risk of violent crime against foreigners is lower here than it probably is from where you came from. But I think the risk of theft is higher. Now, in your case, you were not targeted. But I do think that if you don't look Thai, then I think you are likely to be targeted. So I think tourists, anyone who you don't necessarily have to be white. You could look like a rich Chinese or Japanese or Indian person. But I think that you're just being a foreigner, you're more likely to be targeted for pickpocketing or theft.
Mm-hmm.
Here, than you would be at home. And again, I know there's a lot of different homes. So, I'm from the States, and but I just think that just being a foreigner here, you're at higher risk of theft than you probably realize.
And do you think Thailand's wealth disparity plays a role in this too? Because I would say that probably there's a larger percentage of people in Bangkok who are just barely scraping by than there would be in a similarly sized Western city.
Probably true. No, I think that is, no. I mean, the income inequality here, the wealth gap is huge. Yeah. And I'm sure that plays a role. I mean, just, like grabbing one upper middle class person's iPhone might be more money than the average street person makes in 6 or 8 months. So I'm sure wealth disparity plays a huge role in it.
Right.
But the bottom line is, as you're going to hear from our stories, just kind of petty theft, I think, is the biggest risk you got to worry about here.
Yeah, no doubt. So let me ask you this. Have you ever been pickpocketed here?
I personally have not been pickpocketed, although my house has been burgled several times, and I can tell that story. But you've got some pickpocketing stories?
I have been successfully pickpocketed once and unsuccessfully pickpocketed another time. These were both years ago. The first time happened when I had this tells you how long ago it was. I had an old Nokia 3310 phone, the indestructible one with Snake on it that you played all the time. You had to press a button 6 times to get the letter you wanted in a text message. But it was in the side pocket of my bag that was on my back, and I was walking in Siam BTS station. I got up to the top and I decided to pull the phone out to text someone, and it was gone. That was it.
Yep. Yeah, I think that I would say the biggest risk. So we're going to try to generate some advice for listeners out there. I mean, mostly it's based on just our experiences and our friends' experiences. But to me, if you're visiting Thailand, you should be worried about pickpockets. Yeah. And I don't know what the official defense is against pickpockets, but obviously just keeping your items secure, not having things that for example, not putting something in a back pocket of a backpack.
Right.
It's a common thing. like a lot of travelers. That's right. A lot of backpackers have backpacks, but then they have some valuable thing. Those backpacks are big, and then you've got some valuable thing in a pocket on the back, which you can't feel if someone opens up.
Right.
So that would be a bad idea. So keeping something like that. I mean, so you got to think about where you have your belongings, and then as you and I were just watching a kind of a funny but tragic video of a guy who was he was kind of vlogging live, and his necklace got stolen.
Right.
But yeah, I think a lot of jewelry either gets snatched or gets grabbed, or gets kind of cleverly or delicately unlatched,
right.
Something like that.
Yeah. When you've got a random girl jumping into your arms on the street and telling you how handsome you are, it's hard to really feel what's happening behind your neck as she unlatches your necklace, which happens that video. We'll link to it in our show notes.
That's right, for sure.
But this shows you how dumb I am. The second time I was almost pickpocketed was the exact same bag, except this time I had a Discman. This also tells you how long ago it was. And I was in a very crowded place. People were pushing up against me, and I was with my girlfriend, and I felt my bag being pulled behind me. And I turned around, and there was this guy who must have been absolutely terrified because he was looking up at me like he was Frodo, and I was Gandalf, and he was looking up at me, and he was holding my Discman. And
oh shit!
And the cable was going down to my pocket, like the headphone cable was going down to my pocket.
Oh wow! Okay.
And I grabbed it from his hand and I said, "Get out of here!" And I put my finger in his chest and I pushed him away. But that was the only times that I've ever had something taken from my person.
Yeah, no, I think pickpocketing has got to be the number one crime against foreigners in Thailand. It's got to be. Mm-hmm. It's just very common, and I think. Again, this is in a way it's common sense, but certainly pickpockets are going to go to crowded areas where there's a lot of jostling and bumping up against people. So I think the BTS and MRT, public transportation, I think places like Khao San Road, which are famously crowded with a lot of foreigners, mm-hmm. and then I think places like Charuchak Market,
Chinatown,
these are just places. So I think places with crowds and foreigners. These are the places where there's got to be the most pickpocketing. And I think there are there's definitely pickpocketing gangs. I mean, I don't want to generalize, but there is a stereotype that there are ladyboy pickpocket gangs like around Khao San. You can read about many arrests in the newspapers. But I mean, pickpockets are professionals. They're organized. They're not dumb. They sometimes work in pairs where one person will distract you or talk to you or ask you for directions while the other person is taking something out of your back pocket or your back pocket. But if you tend to be in an area with crowds and foreigners, I think that those are the areas we got to be careful. So I would just say secure your belongings. Right. So wherever you have, maybe it's better to have your phone or your wallet in your front pocket than back pocket, or sealed pocketbooks or bags. I'm not sure what the proper defense is, but you just want to make it harder for them to do their job. Yeah. And again, not only Thailand, this happens in every city around the world, but just a bit of common sense goes a long way here. Absolutely. Let me tell my next story. Now, this is the sort of the scariest thing that ever happened to me here. And this is very unusual, but this was back when I lived in Talat Noi down adjacent to Chinatown. And I was dropping off some visiting friends. I walked them out to the street to get a taxi. And as I was putting them into the taxi, I felt this like on the back of my neck. And what had happened was some kid, I imagine he was probably 17, 18 years old. I'm not sure if you know how to do this, but if you hold a coin, right, like a 10 baht coin in your fingers, like you're going to snap, and you angle your arm right, you can fling it, fling it like really hard. And I think that's what he did. And but why? Well, I don't know. This coin hit me, and I got my friends in the taxi, and I said, okay, bye. And I turned around, and this guy was clearly agitated. He was probably high on something because he was dancing around, and he kept pointing at me, but he wouldn't come near me. And I sort of started walking back home, like, I don't know what's going on here. No one saw, no one made a fuss. And he was staying in front of me, like walking backwards and pointing at me and saying some stuff. And then as I was walking past a soy that he ran into, because I had to walk past this soy, I saw him run into a house, and then I stopped, sort of like, what's going on? And 30 seconds later, an older guy came out, probably his dad, and he kept clearly gesturing for me to get out of here, run away, go away. Oh, really? Get out of here. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Oh, gotcha. Okay. And I just kind of walked back home and thought nothing of it. But later on, asking around a little bit, apparently this guy, for some reason, thought I wronged him somehow, and he was really pissed at me. But he lived in this house, and he was sort of like a local thug. And his dad apparently was some sort of like low-level enforcer of some type. Oh, really? So I don't know what was going to happen. I don't know if this kid ran inside to get a knife and come back out and chase me, or if he ran inside. But you never had an interaction with him. So it was never probably had just an interaction, but it was. So it's probably just some random anti-foreigner agitation. It sounds like. For very likely, but the thing is it made me really nervous for the next month or two. I was quite nervous walking around my neighborhood. What happened? Because I didn't know what I did. What happens if I do the same thing again? And what happens if I run into this guy again and he recognizes me? So it was sort of a violation, I guess. Like I felt really unsafe for a little while because, you're used to feeling quite safe in Bangkok, and when you don't, it becomes really a big issue. Agreed. Yeah. So that was not. So that really, I mean, that was like slightly violent, but it that opens up the door to like you don't know what the next step's going to be. Right, exactly. And of course, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand what the guy's yelling at me, and I'm lost. I don't know who to call. So yeah, it can get a bit hairy sometimes. For sure. Yeah. In my case, I've been very lucky on the street. I've never been pickpocketed that I know of, but I did have. I was exposed to the fact that crime, property crime is a common thing in Bangkok. Back in the day when I used to live on Soi 1, very close to Bumgungrad Hospital, and they were building a new building, like an extension to Bumgungrad. And so there was a big camp of workers, I think primarily Burmese, but they could have been Thai. And so basically like just very close to where I lived were probably like 50 laborers like sleeping in tents. Yeah. And and so it, I mean, my wife and I were very aware that this was potentially dangerous. But we ended up getting my house. I rented a house with my wife, but then a buddy lived upstairs. We ended up getting robbed like 3 different times.
No way.
Yeah, 3 times we got robbed. One of them was kind of a mystery situation where stuff was just missing that we knew we had been robbed. One of them was weird. It was we had a party, and then basically 2 cameras I had were stolen, and we really don't think it was anyone who came to the party. We do think someone like came in after the party. We think it was kind of like a long late night party, and we think like we didn't lock up properly. Oh. So we really don't think anyone like basically these were like a party it was like almost all like our friends,
right?
And we're like we don't think any of our friends like stole 2 of my cameras, but we think like we just like passed out and like left the door unlocked or whatever. But then the 3rd time we got robbed was actually really scary. My wife was studying late at night, and she was asleep on the couch. And it was at 4 a.m. She woke up, and there was a guy in the room.
No way.
Like she woke up and a guy was in the room, and he said, a Thai guy, and he spoke Thai to her and said something like nonsensical, like he said something like, "Where is everybody?" or something like that. And she was just waking up, and
I don't know the story.
Yeah, on the coffee table in front of her happened to be my wallet. Okay, just happened to be on the coffee table, and he picked up my wallet and ran.
Oh, geez, wow.
Okay, and she was just waking up, and so she ran into the bedroom where I was sleeping. And I remember this. You know how sometimes when you get woken up, you're in deep sleep. Like I think it's like stage 3.
You're like you wake up and you don't know if you're like in the bottom of the Grand Canyon or on the Enterprise. You're like, what's happening?
Right. I just remember like her pulling me out of this deep sleep, and she's like yelling, saying like, "There's a guy in the house." Like this is up on the 3rd floor. Like basically, like she's like, "There's a guy in the house," and like I remember just like,
"Yeah, I'm right here. I'm right here."
You know how when you get pulled out of these deep sleeps, you really don't want to respond. Mm-hmm. You're just like, "Yeah, whatever, leave me alone," Anyway, she pulled me out of this deep sleep. I figured out what was going on, and I ran downstairs like to chase the guy, but I never saw him, and there was an open window.
Oh, wow.
And so my wallet got stolen. But again, and I don't know for sure, but we were like immediately adjacent to this camp of like dozens of laborers,
right,
who would drink at night. So I think that's what happened. But this whole I was thinking, as we decided to do the show, I was thinking of like what are the high risk activities. The bottom line is criminals, they are the ones who should be blamed. Like I'm not into blaming the victim, mm-hmm. but at the same time, if you don't want to be a victim, you can try to avoid certain situations that increase the risk of being a victim.
Right. A lot of them are just common sense stuff, though, right?
Yeah. So I have figured this out from my experience, from what I've read, and I think that a lot of the crime against foreigners, these property crimes, number one, like I said before, they happen in crowded areas where tourists are known to be. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's number one. Number two situation is these interactions with people on the street, especially at night. So we have this video, which we're going to link to, of a guy getting his necklace stolen. But essentially the exact same thing happened to my buddy on the street on Soi 11, where he actually was not intoxicated. It was late at night, though. And he got approached by a girl on the street. And she was like all over him, like hugging him or like, hey, whatever. And she was like a cute girl, and she like kind of pushed him against like a wall. Yeah. And basically she stole his necklace. Mm. So these are people, they have experience, they have training, and so, she stole his necklace. So I think just interacting with random people on the street, you should be careful, be suspicious. But then the third category, which is very common, and again, I'm not blaming the victim, the criminals are the ones who are to blame, but these are high risk situations, and it basically involves like being drunk late at night, and it seems like a lot of problems happen either with taxi or tuk-tuk drivers.
Yeah, classic.
So there's a lot of stories online of taxi drivers or tuk-tuk drivers like ripping off drunk foreigners, but it's almost always late at night. And then the other scenario, of course, is with bar girls or prostitutes where guys who are drunk take a girl home and then they wake up and, you know, their laptop is gone or, you know, their money's gone. You know, it's almost, I'm almost on the bar girl side. You know, it's like such a dumb thing to do. But
do you remember the case a few years ago where that exact same thing happened, but the guy who took a girl home from the bar was like a high level Australian spy or diplomat or something like that?
Oh, really?
Yeah. This was oh god, this maybe 6-8 years ago now. But he got drugged and then he woke up the next morning. He's like, what happened? And she had stolen like this briefcase full of top secret government material.
Oh shit! Oh really? No, it's a classic. Yeah, the drunken late night endeavors. Just to be clear, they do involve some risk.
Yeah, then that's the thing too, is that a lot of the stories you hear about this, most of the time, or a majority of the time, or at least a large chunk of the time, they involve a risky behavior. I was out partying, I met someone and did this. I was drinking too much, or I took some drugs, or something where you're...
True that. You're right.
Yeah, you're right. Not all of them, but even my story. Your bike was unlocked. Well, okay. That's why I'm not real upset about my biking laws, because I consider that sort of a stupid tax. It was kind of my own fault. Now,
right.
The security guards could have picked up the slack a little bit there and done me a solid, but still, the fact is the bike was unlocked. That was risky behavior on my part. So I am a little bit to blame there.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is tricky because the bottom line is the criminals are the ones to blame.
Yeah.
But if you want to avoid these risks, you should be aware of these situations. You know, that's I would say. And I think that, you know, sometimes you might be at fault for putting yourself in a risky situation, which usually involves being drunk late at night in a strange, like among people you don't know well. Mm-hmm. But the pickpocketing is, I think it's a little bit different because I think a lot of tourists are just unaware. You know, they're not aware like how professional pickpockets are or how trained they are. Right. And I think that, so if we have one message out there, it's that pickpockets are kind of professionals, and that if you're not prepared, if you don't plan ahead, it's like they have more game than you have. So you know what I mean? It's like a lot of people think like, oh, I could never be. Yeah, I would always feel something if a pickpocket. No, you wouldn't.
Never happened to me.
No, you would not. Yeah. You know, just to be clear, every city, including Bangkok, has horrible, violent crime. It is possible here.
Yeah.
But I think we're lucky in that we have less of that. But we just cannot forget, I think we actually have more of the petty, quote unquote, petty kind of property crime. That's just my speculation. I wish I had proper data to determine it.
Well, it does make sense with the number of tourists that cycle through here.
Yeah, no, as a foreigner, I mean, I think you're targeted. So I think back in the States, I would just fit in better. And so there'd be a certain risk that I might be robbed. But here, it's just, I just stand out. I'm a white guy, so I just stand out. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and again, you can stand out here if you're Arab or Indian or whatever. And then, of course, you might be Asian, but you might not look Thai, or just the way you're dressed, you might look wealthier. And I think that's something to be aware of. I think a lot of tourists, we've talked about this before. It's like when you're on vacation, you let up. You're having fun.
Sure.
You think kind of the rules don't apply, but what you and I know is that there are, I don't want to be too dramatic, but there are like predators out there who are like, they're targeting people who are relaxing and having fun.
Right.
So you become the target of these people trying to make some extra money.
I still maintain that part of it is the Land of Smiles ad campaign that has been so successful that it has brainwashed people around the world to think that nothing bad happens here. But so they completely let their defenses down, and then something bad happens. But yeah, man, I think the final word is overall, Bangkok is a very safe city. There is a little bit to be said about living in our little expat bubble, but I think the stats are in our favor here. But like any place in the world, any city in any country in the world, you do got to take some responsibility and be aware of what you're doing and where you are and how you're acting. But
right. I would just say, don't forget about property crime. I think a lot of foreigners, just once they realize, oh my God, I'm not going to be violently robbed, I'm not going to get shot, they forget. Yeah, okay, you're not going to get shot, but you can still get pickpocketed.
Yeah, and then what are you going to do? Extend your vacation by 2 weeks while you deal with Thai bureaucracy waiting to get your camera back? No, you're not. You're just going to go home and leave it here.
That's right.
And that's where they get you. Anyway, good times. Everyone, be safe out there, everyone. And if you happen to see a black specialized mountain bike with red writing on the side riding around Bangkok by a man that looks suspiciously small to be riding such a large bike, send us an email and let me know. All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we then discuss to decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as something that we just have to learn to live with no matter how we feel about it. Last week, Ed, you gave me one, so this week it's my turn to give you one. And actually, this comes from our friend Luke, who sent in a message and asked what I thought about this, so I figured I'd pass it on to you.
Alrighty.
This is a love, loathe, or live with. When you go to a hotel, what do you think about rooms where the lights do not come on unless you put your little key card in the little slot by the door?
Wow, I've got a fair amount of experience with this, and I really the whole and I think this is a worldwide thing. I don't know if this is unique to Thailand.
I never saw it until it came to Thailand. Never even heard of it until I came to Thailand.
I don't know. I mean, most of my traveling has been inside of Thailand, so I can't speak internationally. But in general, I do kind of hate the whole procedure, the whole thing of like sliding the key in and getting the power to come on. In general, I hate the whole procedure. So over time, I've learned, not really tricks, this is kind of common sense, but even if I'm staying alone, I always ask for 2 keys so I can put one in and just leave it in.
They don't like people like you. This guy's going to leave the aircon on the whole time.
Yeah, but in general, I find the whole thing annoying. It's funny. It's funny you brought this up because it took at the very first, back in the day, whenever I encountered this at first, I really thought it was some kind of sophisticated system where, they give you the key with a card, and I thought it was somehow reading the card. But I think you can kind of stick anything in there, and it probably would work. I think I've never tried it, but I realized later that this is just like a plastic thing.
Right. Yeah. I think I tried with my driver's license one time and it worked, but
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it took me a while to figure that out. I thought it was like some electronic system and it was reading some digital signature. But then I figured out you could probably stick anything in there. But yeah, I'm gonna go. I hate it. Yeah, I'm just gonna go immediate loathe. Yeah. Like I hate the whole process. I guess I understand the idea. I guess they want to save electricity, I guess. But I'm paying for the room.
I think that, okay. I'm going to go live with on this one. I don't love it, but I'm fine with it, especially because when we travel, we have a kid with us, and there's been times where we do have 2 keys, and one of them inevitably gets lost. It slides under the bed or it falls out of a suitcase or something like that. So knowing that there's the quote-unquote emergency backup in the door all the time, I kind of find that reassuring, but it is a bit of a pain to deal with.
Well, yeah, I mean, in that context, that makes sense. I mean, I'm often, it depends on, like my situation, but like last few years I've been traveling alone. And so if I just have one, it is annoying that I have to come back to a room that is super hot.
Yeah. Yeah, that part I don't like.
And the other thing is, it's not even just the heat. It's that often I want to charge stuff. Like I'm a gear guy. I'm like a gadget guy.
Oh, that's a really good
so
point.
It's like, so I've got stuff to charge, and it actually varies by hotel. Sometimes when the power goes out, it cuts power to the outlets, so you can't even charge stuff.
Right.
Like when you're out, and that really annoys me. Like if I want to like go out to eat and charge like one of my charge my camera or something, charge my camera battery. And I can't do it. So that's why the 2 key thing, So typically when you get a room, you can, it'll ask for 1 or 2 people, but the price is usually the same for 1 or 2.
Oh, interesting.
So now, if even though I'm alone, I always say 2, get the 2 keys. boom. But yeah, the whole process I find annoying, and I wish it didn't exist. So I'm going to go loathe.
All right, I'm a live with on this one. It's weird, but I don't mind it. But
Gotcha.
Luke said he comes from America, and he said he'd never experienced it before, and he thought it was a real strange bit of culture shock. He's like, what the hell? So.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, I'm kind of curious now. I thought that this was more of an international thing. Like, you don't think it's a Thai thing, do you?
Man, I
can't really remember. Obviously I've been to other countries, but I just don't remember.
Actually, on my most recent trip to Kuala Lumpur, they had the same thing in the Kuala Lumpur hotel. So
for sure,
yeah.
I think it's international, but I don't like it. I'm just gonna say that.
Countries where it's real hot, they don't want people blasting the aircon while they're out sipping Mai Tais at the swimming pool. Thanks for sending that in, Luke. That's a good one.
All right, a final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons who get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Yeah, baby. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that will feature on the show. I dumped Twitter, left it in the rear view, but you can now find me on Mastodon at bkkgreg@home.social. So thanks for listening, everyone. Take it easy out there. Stay safe, lock your doors, and keep your jewelry hidden. We'll see you back here next week.
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Mm-hmm. Mama always say it. I've never seen Sling Blade. Mm-hmm.
I love Sling Blade. Billy Bob Thornton is genuinely a fascinating guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he was married to Angelina Jolie. It's so bizarre. He's like, Billy Bob Thornton he's kind of like a hick Lothario.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of like this white trash
cool
player.
Handsome looking
he's like
farmer.
Player.
Yeah,
like
right.
It makes no sense. It's like he somehow combines those two things.
He's one of those like guys who like someone took a picture of the farmer delivering their vegetables or something, and it turns out he was super hot. And then they
that's right.
Gave him a shave and a haircut, and turned out he was like model material.
He's not even that good looking. It's
but
just
he's got cool
charisma. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. He's got the vibe.
Anyway, much like you and I.